When you see something happen in the world, a news story, or even something in your own life, have you ever stopped to think there might be more than one way to understand it? Well, sociology says there absolutely is. Today, we're going to look at three major perspectives that are kind of like different lenses for viewing our world, helping us see the hidden forces that really shape our lives. To help us out, we're going to use a really simple, relatable question. Why does a student fail an exam? Seems pretty straightforward, right? But as you're about to see, the answer changes completely depending on which sociological lens you're looking through. Now, the common sense view, the one we all jump to, is pretty simple. The student just didn't study, end of story. But the sociological view tells us to pump the brakes. It says, hold on, it's probably way more complicated than that. We need to look at the bigger picture, at the patterns and forces that we might not even notice at first. Okay, so our first lens is called the structural functionalist perspective. The best way to think about this one is as the big picture view. We're like flying high above society, looking down to see how all the major systems fit together. The core idea here is that society is like a living organism. Seriously, just like your body has organs, heart, lungs, a brain, that all have to work together to keep you alive, society has institutions. Things like family, government, and the economy are all interrelated, and they all have jobs to do to keep society functioning. So the key takeaway for structural functionalism is its focus on balance and stability. The main question it always asks is, how do all these different pieces contribute to keeping society running smoothly? When they do, everything's in order. A sociologist named Robert K. Merton really expanded on this. He argued that any of these social institutions, like a school for instance, actually has three types of outcomes. The obvious ones, the hidden ones, and, well, the ones that cause problems. First up are the manifest functions. These are the stated goals, the obvious reasons something exists. The manifest function of a school system? To educate students. I mean, that's what it says on the tin, right? It's why we build them. But schools do a whole lot more than just teach math and history. And that brings us to latent functions. These are the unintended, kind of accidental results. While kids are learning to read, they're also learning how to make friends, how to follow rules, and how to fit in. This kind of socialization is a massive but hidden function of education. And finally, you have the flip side, dysfunctions. These are the negative consequences, the things that actually break the system or cause instability. So for example, if the education system creates huge inequalities that hold certain students back, that's a dysfunction. It's a sign that a part of our social organism is sick. So here it is, all laid out. You've got the intended goal, education, the unintended side effect, socialization, and the negative outcome, inequality. All three tell us something totally different about what the education system is really doing in our society. Okay, let's switch gears. We're going to take off those functionalist glasses and put on a totally different pair. This is the conflict perspective, and it shifts our focus completely, away from cooperation and towards power and competition. This perspective does not see society as a harmonious body working together. Nope. It sees an arena where different groups are in a constant tug of war, struggling over things like power, money, and status. It's all about who has power and who doesn't. The whole logic of this perspective starts with one big assumption, that at the end of the day, we're all looking out for number one. We are rational and we're always trying to maximize our own self-interest. And what are we all chasing? Scarce resources. Things like great jobs, wealth, and influence, they're all limited. There isn't an infinite supply for everybody. So, what do you think happens when you have a bunch of self-interested people all competing for a limited pool of resources? Well, according to this perspective, you get conflict. It's basically inevitable. Society isn't defined by harmony, it's defined by this constant struggle. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. How does this reframe our original question? Well, from this point of view, a student failing an exam isn't just an individual problem. Maybe they're just on the losing end of a conflict over resources. Maybe their school is underfunded, or they lack access to the same opportunities as others. All right, for our third and final lens, we're doing a complete 180. We're going from that giant macro level of systems and power struggles, and we're zooming all the way in, right down to the micro level of our daily face-to-face interactions. This is the symbolic interactionist perspective. This perspective argues that society isn't some giant structure that's just out there. Instead, it's something we build every single day through our interactions. And we do this by using symbols, like words and gestures, to create shared meanings and communicate. So the focus here is totally on the small scale stuff. It's all about how we interpret the world around us and how those interpretations then shape our behavior. It really all comes down to shared meanings. A handshake is a perfect example. I mean, the physical action itself is kind of meaningless, right? But as a society, we've all agreed it's a symbol of greeting or respect, or that we've made a deal. We see the symbol, we know the meaning, and we know how to act. Same thing with a red traffic light. It's just a colored light bulb, but we all agree on its symbolic meaning. Stop. Our entire traffic system, a huge part of modern society, is built on a sharing that simple interpretation. Okay, so we have our three lenses: the big picture system, the ongoing power struggle, and the daily symbolic interaction. Let's put them all together now and go back one last time to our student who failed the exam. Now look at this. The exact same event can be explained in three totally different ways. A functionalist looks at it and says, the system is failing, it's a dysfunction. A conflict theorist says, no, the student is a victim of inequality and a lack of resources. And an interactionist might say, well, maybe through interactions with teachers or other kids, that student has come to see themselves as a failure, and it's become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So, which one is right? Which one is the real answer? Well, that's the thing. None of them is the single correct one. They're just tools. Each lens reveals a different layer of the truth, a different piece of the puzzle. So the real question is, now that you have these tools in your toolkit, what social puzzle are you going to try to solve?